So, I'm not one to pretend that Riverdale is anything other than trashy soap opera fun. I honestly thought nothing could get crazier than season 2, and then season 3 went,
challenge accepted.
I was convinced that the only thing this show would ever produce would be a mess of guilty pleasure entertainment. But then, something insane happened. Riverdale produced an episode which was not only entertaining, but was well constructed, well written, contained great characterization, and was bold, committed, and extremely watchable. The Midnight Club saw the cast playing their parents in a glorious flashback which somehow unearthed hidden potential within the show and proved that if the creators actually put their minds to it, they could create something so much better than the usual ridiculousness of this series. With the mysterious Griffins and Gargoyles game spreading panic in the town of Riverdale, Betty turns to her mother for answers, and, in a surprising subversion of the usual secrecy of the show, Alice complies, taking Betty and the viewer back to the teen years of the Riverdale parents. While the show keeps the exact era vague, cleverly playing into the idea that the series is timeless, pop culture references and spot-on costuming choices make it easy to deduce that the flashback takes place in the very early 90s or the very late 80s.
It was our junior year. Phones had cords, Winona had Johnny, and everything smelled like teen spirit. The world was a different place, and we were very different people.
The first thing which really struck me about the episode was how much it committed to the aesthetic of the time period it was portraying. Not only were the costume choices absolutely perfect and reflective of the time, the episode's music came directly from the 80s and 90s, the school was redressed to look less modern, and they even redesigned the credits to emulate the cheesy look of credits such as Saved by the Bell and 90210. Say what you will about Riverdale, but the series has always committed fully to its aesthetic, emulating whichever genre and time period the individual episodes called for. Aesthetics aside, there is still plenty to praise here. The episode takes standard teen tropes from the 80s and 90s and uses them to build characterization and subvert expectations. Alice Smith is the stereotypical bad girl from the wrong side of the tracks, pregnant and alone, who, instead of facing the usual will she or won't she get an abortion storyline, pragmatically finds a guy who can take her away from her trailer park life and lies her way into a marriage. Hermione Gomez is the rebellious Catholic girl who is surprisingly soft-spoken and compassionate, but who ultimately turns her back on the nice guy and enters a life of crime and compromise. Penelope Blossom is a straight-laced and neurotic teacher's pet, hiding a terrible secret and being groomed by a family of monsters, one of which she will eventually become. F.P. Jones is the boy from the wrong part of town, who, in another series, would triumph over his shortcomings and succeed, but who instead succumbs to his life and his father's alcoholism. Sierra Samuels avoids the 90s stereotype of being an angry black woman and is instead an ambitious and well-spoken voice of the people, embroiled in a Romeo and Juliet love story and forced to deal with the racism of a small town. The only teen who fits the stereotype completely is good-hearted Fred Andrews, content to be a homeboy, taking on the family business after his father passes away, but even this may be a playful subversion of Luke Perry's bad boy role on 90210. Our expectations of these characters based on their current personalities are subverted, and we get to know the parents on a very cool level, seeing their stolen moments, unusual friendships, and the missed potential of the bonds they form. Using the Griffin and Gargoyles game as an escape from life, we get to discover why the teens find role-playing so appealing, how it takes them away from their worries, and allows them to exert control over themselves and their destinies, something which many teenagers crave.
I wake up every morning wanting to escape my life and my mistakes. And when I'm here, I do. And I'm happy. And when the game's over, I'm me again.
In much the same way people use vices to escape reality, the teens lose themselves more and more in the game, until the inevitable happens and it destroys them and their friendship, forcing them back to their solitary lives, away from one another, and into the lives they have lived as adults. As an audience, we finally come to understand the pasts of the adults, to see how and when their relationships formed and what exactly drove them apart and into the choices they made. It's a nice tie-in to the many hints dropped regarding the lives of the parents and the ties they made when they were younger. In many ways, their relationships mirroring their kids' current ones, showing the inertia of small towns and the way history tends to repeat itself. At the center of the episode is the Griffins and Gargoyles game, and this is where I feel the episode's main strength lies. Riverdale has tried out many different genres over its run, none of which have particularly fit well or been well received. However, this season seems to be aiming for a supernatural thriller, a genre which I find a surprisingly good fit for the show, with an intriguing mystery at its center and some very unsettling and intense events taking place. When Riverdale attempted other genres, the general over-dramatization and cheesiness of the show tended to clash with the subject matter. Supernatural shows, however, are allowed a modicum of leniency when it comes to their more campy and gnarly aspects, and because of this, the Gargoyle King storyline and the sinister reach of the game feels oddly at home in Riverdale. It brings to mind how well received The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina has been, a show which shares a universe with Riverdale and which is similar in tone and feel, but is not mocked or ridiculed because its supernatural elements allows it to use its campiness and more ridiculous aspects to its advantage, making it a far more enjoyable and consistent show than Riverdale. Only time will tell if Riverdale does fully cross over into the supernatural genre, as so far it's only been hinted at. But my personal opinion is that it would be a definite plus for the show. The Griffins and Gargoyles storyline allows for the murder mystery angle from the first season without the show trying to take itself too seriously, which was initially a major issue. It also makes for some really fun and intense viewing, as evidenced in this episode, which playfully teases the supernatural aspects while also managing to tug at the emotional strings, demonstrating that when the writers put their minds to it, they are more than capable of coming up with interesting, emotional, and intriguing storylines. The Midnight Club is probably the first episode of Riverdale I have genuinely enjoyed, and not in the so bad it's good way. It has an unironically scary story at its center, gives us a great glimpse into the past of the parents, demonstrates that the cast are diverse actors, as all of them manage to nail the characterization of the parents' characters, adjusting their mannerisms, speech patterns, and even the way they sing, and the episode is emotional, genuine, and very in tune with its aesthetic and the tropes and cliches from the time period it's portraying. It's a shame that Riverdale will probably fall back into its old ways come next week and reverts to its usual, albeit entertaining, mess of storylines, because this episode proves that if they really wanted to, the writers could turn this hot mess of a show into something interesting, intriguing, and actually good. I can only hope and pray that we will see this potential rise again in future episodes.